Sup nerds, I'm CuppaJoey. It's Friday evening, so welcome back to another episode of Hobby Drama. And today we're going to be having a look at the furry community, or rather specifically the adoptables community. If you're like me, I was completely new to the concept of closed species and adoptables when I first came across this post. So if I'm currently not making any sense to you, then don't worry, it should make sense by the end of the video. So you know the drill? Put some slippers on, get your feet up, a nice cup of CuppaJoey, and let's crack on with some hobby drama. I wanted to give a huge thank you to Reddit user Marshybettle for writing up this post and also for giving me permission to read it out on my channel. It's always really interesting to hear about the little tidbits of drama that are from small communities that we never hear about, so thank you for actually taking the time to write up this story. I hope people enjoy hearing it as much as I enjoyed reading it. Adoptable / closed species, the furry that sold for $20,500. Before I even start, I am not in any way attempting to belittle or side with anyone in this situation. I am an outsider of this drama and the Grem 2 community / species, and I hold a great deal of respect for all the parties described. I am completely neutral. The purpose of this post is only to catalogue some interesting and entertaining drama. Please do not harass anyone involved. That obviously extends to this channel. I am completely neutral in this. I am coming into this drama with a fresh face and I will give my commentary afterwards. And yeah, please don't harass anybody after seeing this video, that's not cool. An introduction to adoptables. Some of you may be familiar with the adoptable community, some of you may not. In short, it's a relatively large community spread over sites like DeviantArt, Twitter, and Instagram that sell furry and humanoid designs for, primarily, real-life money and art. Most people draw art of the characters they buy, as well as make stories about them, roleplay with them, and more like unique digital toys. Just like how you might like a figurine by a certain company, people like to buy character designs by certain artists. Some people also like to trade the designs they buy, think of it like trading cards. In long, the adoptable community is a drama-riddled mess. It can both bring out the beautiful and inspiring talent and creativity inside both children and adults alike, and encourages unique ideas, artistic freedom, and story building. It can also reveal scammers, thieves, and downright disgusting individuals that lurk under the disguise of an innocent artist. Artists create character designs and sell the design to someone. That's the gist of it. The character design becomes your property and you can do whatever you want with it. Draw artwork, make stories, put them in a comical game, you name it. I'm personally an adoptable creator as I use money selling character designs to get by, but I'm definitely not popular by any means, just very familiar with the community and admittedly a sucker for drama. A subset of the adoptable community, the myriad of different species communities are a topic of some controversy. A species is what it says on the tin, like how a character could be an elf or a fox or a species of a unique species of animal or humanoid. Some popular examples include scar foxes, kitty dogs, strudels, sushi dogs, which could be a write-up itself. By the way, this is a write-up itself. And I will be reading out the separate post on sushi dogs in another episode, so stay tuned for that. So, some popular examples include scar foxes, kitty dogs, strudels, sushi dogs, and the main topic of this article, Grem 2. Before I get into the meat of this, species have a few different subtypes. Open species. A species anyone can make a design for. You don't have to pay someone to make an adoptable or a character of this species. Some have a terms of service or guide that you have to follow, but they're generally very lax and oftentimes completely unmoderated. Semi-open species. A species that usually lets you create free designs with certain traits. Most people who own a species like the species to have some sort of rarity index associated with them. For example, some types of tails or ears may be common and less expensive than rarer variants. A tufted tail may be common, and a rounded off tail may be rare, which in a semi-open species would usually only let you make designs with common rarity features. Rarer features can be purchased through adoptable sales or MYO, make your own, slots which let you create an official character of the species. Closed species. A species where you are not allowed to make a character design of it at all, unless you own a make your own slot or buy an official adoptable for the species creator or their hired artists. Heavily moderated, sometimes with questionable terms of service such as character reclaiming, they can get very, very pricey and elusive depending on what species you're looking at, and some even have their own websites with expansive lore and RPG elements. Now, technically, you can make your own types of these species and nobody can really do anything about it. These are called off-brands, and they're generally much frowned upon in the adoptable community as you're denying artists money whose only source of income can be through these art and species sales. They also get you banned from the species and give you a pretty bad name in the adopt community, so people want to make and sell off-brands, they usually try and fly under the radar or do it on underground sites. I don't endorse making off brands, it gives you a bad look with many people in the adopt community and is also a pretty scummy practice in general. It's not the focus of this post, but I figured I should explain anyways for the inevitable questions of why people can't just rip off a species. Welcome to Gremcore. Grems are creatures from an ancient species that have been thoroughly domesticated by humanity. Grems serve as human companionship and protection along with many other means of assistance. They can be created to be loving and cuddly companions or stern and alert defenders depending on your needs. This is a quote from the Gremcore DA group, as you can see here. This is the DeviantArt group with a little quote there. Grem 2 is a very popular and expensive closed species. This particular art was made by Furry Adoptables on Fur Affinity. They are beloved for their ARPG community, I'm going to assume that means adoptable role-playing game community, sleek presentation, and their creative and exciting designs which are quite sought after within the adoptable community. However, these designs usually go for quite a bit. The species is similarly well known for not being particularly beginner-friendly due to their steep prices and difficulty to trade for, and many of the more popular and proficient Grem 2 character owners often spend thousands upon thousands just buying the Grem 2 adoptables, or make your own slots themselves. One fine summer's day, a user who formerly went by Caravan Outpost stumbled upon Gremcore and immediately fell in love with the species. So in this post, OP is referring to them as Caravan. I'm going to keep trying to say Caravan Outpost to make it very clear because I think that it might get a little confusing otherwise. Little did anyone know that this newbie to the species would become an infamous name within the adopted species communities. Details are scarce around this period as many Grem 2 auctions and custom sales have been lost to time due to posts being deleted because of harassment. Many of Caravan Outpost's posts in the Grem community, as well as other purchases and trades, are unknown. On the 12th of July 2019, Toothless Ego, a Grem 2 species co-founder, who I'll be referring to as Tooth, again, this is the OP of the post, they are referring to them as Tooth. I am going to keep trying to say the full name Toothless Ego just because it makes a little more sense for me. Toothless Ego started up an auction to get a custom design. The starting bid was an immediate $800, which was the minimum price for a Cephalus Grem 2, which is a subspecies of Grem 2 and the most sought after kind of Grem. The owner of the Grem 2 species, Mr. Gremball, was going to help out with the custom auction and throw in some free additional art while they were at it, all going smoothly. Until it hit the thousands. Thus it begins. Money was flying everywhere. Within the time span of a single day, the bids just went higher. And higher. And higher. Note here, Kintsugi Kitsune is Caravan Outpost. Finally, Toothless Ego decided enough was enough and closed the auction. Caravan had won the Grem 2 custom auction for an astounding $20,500. People all across DeviantArt were flabbergasted. Such a high winning price was unheard of, and many were upset at the ludicrous amount spent on a single character drawing. The auction closed silently, comments were disabled and hidden, and DeviantArt was left in shock and awe. Some were congratulatory towards Tooth, Mr. Gremble, and the Grem team, but most were furious and bewildered, rightfully so. So this comment here, it says, why is someone spending $20,000 on a design? B, you must be a billionaire to not go bankrupt after this. I don't get spending triple digits over something that isn't physical, but I believe they mentioned they're wealthy. Oof. Valid, but still. Jeez. Grem 2 Custom sold for $20,500. My Adopts sold for 5. Grems are basically the Rolexes of the closed species universe, and I hate it. There's such status symbols of, hey, I got cash money! What the frick? I literally can't fathom having that much money, less spending it on a design. $20,500 is an enormous amount to spend for a custom furry, but hey, you do you. Then the Tumblr Ask accounts relating to the Adopt community started flooding with hateful posts. Accusations were rampant about both the staff team and Caravan Outpost.
Mr. Gramble could have had the decency, morals to stop the Grem auction before it got to 20k, but she loves brown bosses and people who give her money. It isn't the Grem owner's fault, but the species owner's fault for allowing an auction to go that high, and some peculiar piece of punctuation that probably means something to the younger generation.
That's a aww face.
There was a $20,000 Grem was brought up in Discord. Makes you think some of the higher auction Grems like that are faked. You know what's really funny? Mr. Gramble was crap, talking a person who paid 20k. She doesn't give a crap. Who gives her money? She just wants more of it.
On the 21st of July, 9 days after the 20,500 Grem 2 custom was won by Caravan Outpost, an auction went up for a pre-designed Grem. The auto buy for the Adoptable was $3,000. Yoink! Caravan Outpost was yet again under the spotlight for their expensive purchase. The character design is lovely, by the way. The art is by Kazma on DeviantArt, so the artist definitely deserved that money. The Grem 2 community was understandably congratulatory, confused, and shocked at the same time. Would Caravan Outpost just keep snagging more adoptables like this? How rich does this person have to be able to spend $23,500, possibly even more, on fantasy furry designs? Caravan Outpost attempted to bid on another auction on a different close species called Browbirds. They bid a huge $6,000 on a custom design auction for a Browbird. However, the owner of the Browbird species got suspicious, and it was later revealed in a post I'll talk about soon that Caravan speculates that it was Mr. Gremble that spilled the beans to the Browbird species owner. Caravan got banned from the Browbird species midway through the auction, causing the Adoptable's price to be needlessly inflated. Thus, tensions continue to rise between Caravan Outpost and Mr. Gremble. Now, for Caravan Outpost speculation, they wrote here, I got into a species called Browbirds, which are part of the Celestial Seas species. When the Browbird species owner put out a custom auction, I jumped in, but gave up around 6k since I wasn't keen on spending more than that at the time. About a day later, I got this message, and then they sent a screenshot of the Browbirds owner saying that they are uncomfortable working with Caravan Outpost on a custom design. As I'd only purchased a single Browbird before the auction, there was no reason for Blank to be wary unless somebody had slipped him some information. This led me to believe it was Mr. Gremble, as I had not said anything about customs, positive or negative. I'm not saying it's impossible that someone else did it, but considering that the owner gave no information and refused to discuss it, I had to go on the information I had. The customs reveal and the ugly truth. The Grem 2 community's riled-up attitude towards Caravan Outpost died down over time, but many people were still frustrated at Caravan Outpost whenever the topic was brought back up. The Grem community still hasn't healed from Caravan Outpost's insane purchases, even till this present day. People made up wild rumours about what could be happening behind the scenes with Mr. Gremble, Toothless Ego, and Caravan Outpost Custom Grem. Things were awkward for a while, but seem to be calming down, at least from an outsider's perspective. Suddenly, on the 9th of February 2020, Caravan Outpost posted an update about their 20,500 custom and the situation between them, Toothless Ego, and Mr. Gremble. The finished 20,500 custom is revealed to look like this. Immediate outrage. Followers of the drama in the Grem community riot and say that the design looks hideous, as you'll see here.
Pretty sure that 20k Grem was a custom made to what Caravan wanted and had extra art that came with it. So the master list thing isn't the full sheet. Plus, it's that ugly because Caravan designed it themselves. I don't think anyone could draw that Grem design good, even if they were fantastic artists. I think Ego did a decent job at this disaster of a desing.
That Grem that Caravan Outpost paid for is horrid. That is in no way the quality anyone even paying $20 should receive. Did they even get the money back or what?
As you can see, opinions were divided. They said that Caravan Outpost should never have spent their money, saying it looks clashy, rushed, and unfinished. I personally think that the design is beautiful, but for $20,500, I don't think any character could ever live up to the hype of that amount of money. Caravan Outpost reveals that the reason that they spent $20,500 on a custom was due to taking too high a dose of SSRI, causing them to go into a manic state and overspend. They tell Mr. Gremble about their manic state when they were bidding, to no response. Caravan Outpost states that they asked Mr. Gremble to at least compensate their huge purchase by throwing in a Cypherus Grem 2 make your own slot or a 9,000 refund. Mr. Gremble refuses, and Caravan Outpost subsequently threatens a chargeback on a portion of the $20,500 payment. So here they said, I told Mr. Gremble that I wanted a partial refund of $9,000. Keep in mind that a normal Grem is $300, Mutants and Snows can go up to $500, and a Cypherus are normally $800 to $1,000. They could have auctioned my slot and sold my Cypherus, as in they could have paid me back slowly. Mr. Gremble refused and I threatened a chargeback on one of the invoice payments. She then informed me that I was long past the chargeback period and seemed upset when she realised that no, at that point we weren't. I wish I had screenshots of the above, but I didn't expect our relationship to get even worse. Caravan Outpost gets sick of the long time it is taking for Tooth to deliver the custom and demands the design to be delivered ASAP to both Toothless Ego and Mr. Gremble, and in turn gets their finished product. To win this demand, Caravan Outpost said, I messaged Mr. Grumble and Toothless Ego that I wanted my artwork ASAP or I would take legal action against them. I was utterly sick of waiting, of being taken advantage of feeling tense, and feeling like I was walking on eggshells so I didn't anger the mighty Grem gods and not get my custom. About 24 hours later, a Cypherus Grem appeared in my inbox. He's a definite rush job, but I considered the matter over. Caravan Outpost received a large amount of backlash on their posts, as well as support. They have been banned from the Grem 2 species and have deactivated their DeviantArt account entirely, probably for the foreseeable future. The Grem 2 staff continue to sell customs and adoptables, and although the situation was so dramatic and public, it's pretty unclear as to who was in the right and wrong, as many of Caravan Outpost's claims didn't actually come with the screenshots. Caravan Outpost's ludicrous spending habits have become a thing of the past, although to those that were around for the drama in 2019, their $20,500 purchase is still brought up occasionally as a kind of community inside joke. Nobody really knows where Caravan Outpost went, but their impact on the closed species Grem 2 community has certainly left a bruise. Too long did it read, Guy spends up to $23,500 on furry designs. A design worth $20,500 turns out rushed, the adoptable community is furious, and it's alleged one of the people in charge of the design auctions was taking advantage of the buyer's mental illness. And that, ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed MBs, brings our story of the furry that sold for over $20,000 to a close. So I'm gonna start this off by sounding completely ignorant, and I'm just gonna say right at the back, I really can't get my head around the concept of closed species. Because, like OP said, there's nothing to stop you from creating your own, and while they've said that it's quite a scummy practice anyway, I personally, again, I'm not in this fandom, so this could be just like a massive no-no in terms of the community, but I really don't understand what's so bad about it. I mean, especially in terms of RPGs, people have created original characters constantly. There are all kinds of fakeamon, fake Pokemon. For example, Pokemon Uranium, which is a fan-made fake Pokemon game, and ironically, it's actually one of the best Pokemon games out there. I do recommend it. I do understand that if you specifically want to roleplay within that adoptable community, then you're just not going to be able to unless you cough up the money. Which, I guess it makes sense. They have their own community with their rules as to who comes in, who does what, but I really, this is just something that I'm really unable to get my head around. Now, I do understand that people will say, look, it's my intellectual property. I created a creature called Kitty Wings. That's just what I'm going to call my fake, pseudo furry thing. I'm going to say that I created a kind of cat with wings. I'm going to call it Kitty Wings, and nobody else can make a kitty wing unless they pay me. I mean, I understand that if that's I understand the whole thing behind the intellectual property. They were the one that came up with it. They should get credit for it and all of that, but like I said, fake Pokemon exist, and I'm pretty sure fake Neopets exist as well. So it's not entirely something that I can fully come to terms with. I mean, I understand that it happens, and I understand the reasoning why. Especially when people are making money off of it and it is their art. I mean, yeah, I get it, but again, it's really not something that I can connect with. It's kind of like Anne Rice. Anne Rice, who wrote the Interview with the Vampire novels, made it very clear that she was incredibly uncomfortable with any kind of fan fiction or fan work, as she felt that it was taking away from her characters. I mean, similarly, George R.R. Martin has said that he is slightly uncomfortable with it, but at the end of the day, it's making people write, and so he's glad to inspire others. There are kind of mixed reactions on that kind of front. But anyway, when you go back to Anne Rice and you say, she says that she doesn't want any fanfic, well, all you gotta do is open up Google Lestat de Lioncourt fanfic, and when you know, boom, there's like a freaking ton of results. So, if you wanted to create your own, say, Grem in this case, then I really don't see anything too bad with just hiring someone on Fiverr to design it for you, and then not getting involved in the community. Like, because that's the thing, is that they said you get your name blacklisted, and yeah, fair enough, if you don't want to associate with these people, then I guess that's not too much of a problem. So I will flat out say that this isn't something that I understand too much. I do understand that people need to make money from it, but hey, they're making thousands and thousands. It doesn't seem like they're going to be struggling all too much anytime soon. Now, on to the issue of the $20,500. To me, spending that amount of money is just absolutely inconceivable. There is no way that I have ever or would ever have that amount of money. I think the main issue as well is that I'm not entirely sure how secure DeviantArt is in terms of auctions. So you can see, you might have guessed at least from all of the screenshots, that this all took place on DeviantArt. I don't know how much safeguarding there is in place for things like this, especially when there are financial transactions and incredibly high ones. There clearly should have been some sort of contract in place. I mean, especially when you are dealing in that high, values of money. The fact that the person that spent that much was waiting for ages and not getting anything meant that they just spent that amount of money for nothing. I would be getting really frustrated as well, really anxious, and the problem is that when you spend a huge amount of money on something and then you're not getting it and then you're starting to get frustrated, it's not going to make you want to use it. So essentially this person, Caravan Outpost, they spent thousands and thousands for essentially nothing. They're not getting any enjoyment out of it, they're not using their Grem, it's just going to be an endless source of misery for them. Which is absolutely not what you want when you're investing 20 grand into something. This is a case where I think that different people suck. I mean, we are not seeing the whole story here. Caravan Outpost has definitely worded it to make themselves seem like the victim and to seem like they are the one that is struggling and having all this money taken away and not getting what they want. I am slightly rich phobic, just to be, blunt about it. I'm working class, I grew up in poverty as a kid, so, I kind of raise a skeptical eyebrow at rich people that are struggling. And yeah, if you have 20 grand to spend on a drawing, you're rich, you're very, very freaking rich. And they said that they were wealthy as well, so it could be that they're being slightly manipulative. I have experienced that for rich people, they do tend to be more manipulative. And the fact of the matter is, an auction is an auction. Just because you spent a lot of money doesn't really mean that you can necessarily then go back and say, oh, can you throw in that and that as well? Because that's at the discretion of the seller, right? I mean, they said that they were struggling with their antidepressants and how they were in a manic episode when they were spending that much. I mean, that sucks. That really sucks, and I'm kind of glad that they did speak about that, because it shows that mental health manifests itself in loads of different ways. While people do generally just see the person in bed, like, turning away, crying, not washing, it can be things like spending money that you shouldn't, and desperately trying to make yourself be happy with these frivolous things, so I do understand that. But again, it is just what they're saying. We do not know the story. It could be kind of an excuse for all we know, so I'm kind of taking all that with a pinch of salt, but I do think that it's something that we should bear in mind. When it comes to the fact that they actually accepted 20 odd grand for the drawing, I mean, if people are willing to spend that, then why shouldn't they, accept it? If somebody is, if you're saying, look, I'll do a piece of art for an auction, and somebody is willing to spend 20 grand on your artwork, then why should you not accept it? I don't see why artists shouldn't. I mean, artists really do not get enough credit for their work, and they do not get as much money as they deserve. By any means. So I understand that kind of safeguarding. I just feel like there was so much safeguarding here that should have happened that didn't. If an eccentric rich person wants to spend 20 grand on a freaking drawing, fine. But all of the drama that surrounded it and everything, there really needs to be some kind of contract, some kind of payment plan, or anything like that. And the fact that they were, like, going around, I mean, yeah, this does seem like somebody who was spending out of depression. Because, retail therapy is something that I've done myself. The only difference is that I bought, like, £6 plushies that I didn't need, and still have. Again, the closed species thing is not something that I will ever be able to understand. It does very much... It gives me the impression of, like, this is our special club and nobody else is allowed to join. But when it's their intellectual property and they want to safeguard it, I can kind of... It's one of those awkward things where I can understand both sides. But I do think that if you are going to be creating this world where this fake species exists, there are going to be people that are going to want to get in on that. There are people that make their own Pokemon, there are people that make their own Neopets, there are people that make their own My Little Pony, there are even people that make their own, elves and stuff in Tolkien. It's just, it's the way roleplay goes. And the problem is that, and I am a roleplayer myself, I do like to write my little stories, there is a lot of drama in those things. People do get attached, people do kind of use it as a replacement for real life in a lot of ways, which is really unhealthy. And I feel that there needs to be a certain amount of separation. I don't know whether that came into play here, because it could have been a certain, escapism, which was why they felt the need to spend this amount of money to have that escape there, and yeah, that escape costs this amount. But again, the problem is that it is just going to end up being a community for rich kids. It's just, if inflation happens and you can only join in this, like, little world with your own little character, then it's just going to be this closed-off community where you have to be really rich in order to join. I don't really like that. And like I said, there's nothing stopping people from creating their own little communities, from making a grem and going, hey, furries, I've made this, magical creature. Do you want to roleplay with me? And they'll probably say yes. There are furries willing to roleplay everywhere, so while you may get blacklisted from that community, I mean, do you really want to spend time with people that are, earning that much? I mean, I generally feel uncomfortable around rich people. That's just me. Sorry if you're rich. Not sorry, give me a tip. Please, I'm in the minuses. But I would feel uncomfortable if I wanted something and then the prices were that high and it was just going to be auctioned out. It is incredibly expensive. And it is automatically cutting out a group of people, so if they really, really wanted to do a grem, I really don't see any reason why they could just make one and do it as a separate group. But if you want to be part of that specific community where they do that whole grem thing, then, hey, that's on you. There is no real conclusion to this one. It just seems like a very bad situation where everyone was kind of in the wrong. I mean, spending that much money is worrying. Allowing it to go for that high, again, I don't know whether there was proper safeguarding in place. It feels like it shouldn't have been down on the individuals. There really should have been some kind of structure to stop this kind of thing from happening, and there wasn't, which was why it happened in the first place. It could be one of those situations where it needs to happen for you to realise that there's something wrong. But overall, this just seems like a very sad situation where there was no real winners. Again, the adoptable community isn't something that I'm going to understand. When I first read Adoptables, it was totally different from what I thought it was going to be. I thought that it was going to be like this convention thing where there are furries that like go up and then you adopt them for the day. You basically have this furry going around with you. I know that that was like a really big thing at say like Rainforest that I don't think is gonna come back anytime soon. Yeah, this was interesting. This was definitely a bit of drama that I'd never heard about. It still astounds me that that went for $20,500. I think it's a perfectly nice piece of art. I like fantasy creatures. I think it's pretty cool, but is it worth that? No. I mean, at least like 100. Yeah, 100 I can understand, but 20,500. Ugh, yeesh. I'm never going to understand rich people. I think that that's the conclusion for this episode, ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed MBs. I do not understand rich people. That's it for this episode of Hobby Drama. I really do hope that you enjoyed hearing this video as much as I enjoyed reading the story originally and then making it. I'm personally really interested in hearing the tiny little bits of drama from really small communities, so please let me know if this is something that you're interested in hearing more of. And as I say at the end of every episode, if you would like to hear from any other subreddit, then do let me know in the comments and feel free to email me your stories. My email is located on my channel and shouldn't be too hard to find. And until then, I will see you all next time.